Talking about this digs up some terrible feeling that came as a result of the events that transpired during the month of November 2015. Some events have been left because either they have personal details I don't remember, or I don't want to talk about it because of the emotional trauma that this caused. My family and I moved from South Texas to South Arizona in 2015. We moved into an old house that we were renting from my aunt. She said the house had been sitting there for a while, or more than a year, because she just wanted to put to good use. When we moved in, the place was surprisingly clean. Not much dust or dirt was present. The only weird thing was, there was a locked door leading into one of the bedrooms. We called my aunt and asked for the key to the door because our keys didn't work for it. After about an hour of cleaning, my aunt dropped off the key and looked through the house quickly and left. My little brother had already made friends with the boys around the neighborhood. I've always had problems making friends, and back in Texas, I only really had good 2 friends. So starting in a completely new place, I envied my brother for being able to make friends. I was diagnosed with insomnia at the age of 10, so I've had trouble falling asleep since then. It generally takes me around an hour to fall asleep. We've tried many different medications like melatonin, Ambien, and Restoril, and none seemed to work. About a week into living in the new place, I was laying in bed when I heard a sound from the walls. I'm a paranoid person, so I immediately sat up and listened some more. It was like a sound of something brushing up against the wall. I get out of bed and walk over to where it was coming from. But once I got over there, it seemed like it was coming from another different part of the room. I wasn't scared, but more confused than anything. I decided to sleep on the couch because it didn't seem to stop. But when I grabbed the door handle and I started to open the door, suddenly there was a slight knock on the wall next to me. I stopped in my tracks and put my ear up to the wall. Another knock louder than that. It sent me sprinting to my parents' room. I woke them up because the excuse they gave me was the old air conditioning. I slept on the couch that night because there was no way I was sleeping in my room for that night. The next morning I investigated my room and the walls of my room to no avail. I thought about it all day, and eventually I gave up because it just didn't make any sense because the only room next to mine was the guest room. But there was like 6 foot of space between the rooms, so it couldn't have come from that. The sound was back that night, but I just decided to believe my mom and tried to sleep through the noise. 45 minutes later, I heard a creaking sound from the hallway. It was muffled. I was never really a kid that got scared easily, so this didn't bother me. I got out of bed and opened the door, half expecting to hear another knock. I walked out into the hallway into complete darkness. I still wasn't familiar with the house, so finding the light switch was a challenge. I moved down the hallway and got to the stairs and found one. I flipped the light on. The sound of a door slamming made me scream and sent me sprinting to my parents' room again, bumping onto my dad on the way in. We both went to the guest bedroom and searched around for a bit. There wasn't much furniture there, so the only places we had to check was under the bed and in the closet. We looked under the bed to find nothing, but in the closet, we found a little door. My dad opened the door, shined a flashlight in there, and jumped back. He scrambled back up against the bed and told me to call the police. I ran to the phone and dialed 911. They said the police would be there soon. I ran back into the room as my dad was shut the door. But I heard my mom scream as a man runs down the hall and down the stairs. My dad and I chased him. He's already out the house, and out the door. When the police got there, they checked the room and it was a small maintenance room that had an old water heater. But what else we found made me collapse on the floor in tears. There were pictures of me all over the walls, with missing articles of clothing that had gone missing. He had been sleeping in the guest bedroom until we moved in and slept inside the maintenance room. There was a hole in the wall looking into my room with a camera looking through it. I was put into counseling, which helped a little bit, but not much because knowing someone watched or even touched you while you were sleeping scars you for life. Nothing can fix that. My parents never told me what was found in the camera, but deep down, I don't want to know either. My house is not very tall, but it did have a shed that was there when we bought it. The exterior was white, painted with brown trim on the edges. Tall trees surrounded the shed and littered their leaves on the roof. There's a small window implanted on the front of the shed. It opens from the inside. The shed has 2 locks, one at the very top that is a bolt, as well as one at the bottom that twists. The shed roof is blanketed in green moss, which almost hides the brown shingles that decorate the roof's surface. My neighborhood is a safe place. I've always been able to walk alone and feel safe, but lately I've been feeling uneasy. My dog likes to go outside a lot. That's not unusual, but she keeps coming inside covered in mud and smelling like cigarettes. One day I was homesick. My dog Ellie had been outside for a while. I looked around trying to see if my dog was there. She wasn't. Instead, there was a blue bag in the yard. I quickly put on my shoes and ran outside to grab her. I brought Ellie inside and grabbed the bag. It was a pretzel bag, empty and crinkled. I knew we didn't buy it. Our fence is too small for any trash to blow over it, so how'd it get there? I looked around, seeing if there was any other trash. There was an empty can of soda to the left of the shed. I shuddered and left, running inside and checking over my shoulder to see if anything was following me. I locked the door, drew the curtains shut, and crouched in the kitchen. There was a knife block on the counter next to me. I grabbed the sharpest one, then called Ellie into the kitchen. She sat beside me and licked my hand, whining softly. I suddenly heard a sharp tap on the backyard window. My breath hitched until I heard a throaty burp call. 10 crows flocked away from the yard when I carefully opened the blinds and looked outside. I dialed my phone, praying that my mother would answer. She didn't answer either of her numbers. My dad didn't answer. The panic rose to crazy levels. I stood up clutching this knife in my hand. It was cloudy outside, I remember. The cloud cover dropped rain as I ventured outside, all senses prickling and raring to go. Ellie jumped up against the door, making a clatter that caused me to spin around. I took a deep breath and kept walking, trying to work up the courage to go behind the shed. Kicking the empty soda can behind me, a sour smell invaded my nose. "Oh my God," I murmured. I hope it wasn't a dead animal that my dog had been eating. It was worse. Oh, it was much, much worse. A carcass was lying behind my shed, covered in leaves and wool and blankets. The corpse's nails were yellowed and peeking out from the blanket. It was pretty ugly. Thankful I couldn't see where my dog had been eating, but I could hear the flies buzzing. The sound was a scream in my ears. "Can my day get any worse?" I murmured. I didn't touch the corpse, but the eyes continued to survey it. The teeth of maybe a man were yellow and hanging loosely off the gums. The arms were under the head. He'd been using them for a pillow while he was sleeping. The legs were curled to the chest like little mountains. I called my mom and left a voicemail. Still staring at the body. Walking inside, I locked the door. So I live in New Brunswick, about an hour away from Fredericton. I was coming home from being at the mall all day, just shopping and having a good time with some friends. There's a long-ass road with nothing but trees and road for a good 5 miles, and I have to go through that to get to my house. It wasn't that different from any other time. I've been up this road 100 times before. I was halfway through the 5-mile forest when my headlights catch something going across the road and going into the woods. I didn't see it completely, so being the curious 19-year-old I am, I looked behind me to make sure no one was coming and situated my car towards where the figure headed into the forest. What I saw scared the ever-living hell out of me. It was this really lanky and very pale creature that was almost down to bare bones. It was up into a tree about halfway up. The arms had this huge wingspan. The foot hit gas before I knew when I was speeding down the road. And the scariest thing about this encounter is when I realized I had my windows down a little bit. I heard this most blood-curdling screech. It was like a mix between a mountain lion and a scream of a woman. Ever since I've taken the highway,